Hey, Poppy.
Hey, we're
I'm
just
back.
right on. We are just
Are we
loading.
good?
And
Are we Facebooked right up?
let me check.
It looks good on here. I've got a little Facebook thing here.
Yep. And it looks good on this side. Let me make sure I dropped the link for everybody. You guys, if you want to join live on Zoom, feel free to jump in and do so. We'd love to have you.
Don't be scared.
Don't
Don't bite.
scared.
Well, I don't anyway.
This is an important topic.
And she's vegan, so she won't eat you either. So you're probably pretty good to go.
I don't know.
Lee's with us. Hey, Lee.
Let me make sure my sound's turned down so I don't blast everybody. Good morning, Stephanie. Good morning, Elisa. And we've got somebody on the Facebook group. And I'm like trying to pull up all my text. So give me a second before I introduce Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself since I'm trying to find my Zoom?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Nick Thompson. I'm a vet, qualified in '92 from the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies in Edinburgh. Qualified with 2 degrees, one in pathological sciences, which involves virology, microbiology, parasitology, immunology, lots of ologies, fascinating stuff. Love to talk about that stuff if you like, and a vet degree. And then I went into practice. I thought I was going to be a regular vet, doing cattle and horses and sheep and hamsters and everything, and did that for 7 years. And then I was dissatisfied. I just thought, I saw some problems with drugs, and I thought that if I get ill, I'm going to lean away from drugs. So what am I doing? Using drugs as part of my main therapy. So I started my own practice, which is called Holistic Vet, holisticvet.co.uk. Started that in 1999. We've got, you can find the website there, holisticvet.co.uk, and the rest is history, really. I do homeopathy, acupuncture, nutrition, and herbal medicine. But over the last 10 years or so, the canine nutrition, the raw food nutrition has really taken off, and therefore that's taking up most of my time. So I'm mainly doing raw food nutrition and absolutely loving it, Poppy. Just feeding dogs the way nature intended. It really is a very gratifying thing to do.
That's amazing how it transformed your whole practice and your whole focus.
Yeah,
is raw feeding. It is a big deal.
It is. It really is. Yeah, very much so.
And how is there a lot of members in your raw feeding society? It's a veterinarian group, right?
Yeah, it's a group. It's everybody's welcome to join. It's the website is RFVS, which stands for Raw Feeding Veterinary Society.info, and you can go along there, and there's you can get lots of information and meet up with like-minded people, and that's a great place to be if you're into species appropriate nutrition. Feeding horses as horses are supposed to be fed, feeding cows as cows are supposed to be fed, feeding dogs and cats as they're meant to be fed, as nature intended. So it's a great place to be.
So that's amazing. You even include horses in that.
We don't, but I was used, but they do eat raw food. They do. If they're eating grass, they're eating raw food, which is wonderful. But the principle is that we don't feed our horses on steak. Why not? Because everybody knows that would be ridiculous. That is a species inappropriate nutrition. Yeah, it's full of fat and it's full of protein, but it's species inappropriate. And yet, when we listen to Purina and Royal Canin and Hills, they say, I know it's a really great idea if we feed your dog with loads of cereal, starchy grain. And again, it's insanity. And these guys, they're also saying, let's feed your dog, your beloved dog, with ultra processed food. You shouldn't go to McDonald's, you shouldn't go to KFC, but you can feed your dog on ultra processed food. Where's the logic there? You know, it's it's you know what I find, Poppy, is that children get this. Children really get this, and the more the less kind of academic and the less kind of ultra intellectual people are, the more they get the whole, you've got to feed a dog as a dog, you've got to feed a cat as a cat. You know, the more they get it, kids especially, it's like, okay, we feed horses on grass. What should we feed our dogs? Let's feed them the most appropriate, what they've been eating for millions of years. Okay, they totally get it. It's a joy to work with kids because it's I can speak one-to-one. I can speak directly to them and really get some I can have some great conversation.
I mean, we've polluted ourselves so much. We've been fed such an agenda, I think.
Yeah.
So from the raw feeding passion, from you deep diving into raw feeding, is that what brought you to like a clean lifestyle, or how sterile our situation is? I feel like antibiotic use and antibacterial use, like we've been so antimicrobial that we've created a sterile society.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that I mean, it's called the hygiene hypothesis, and there was some work came out of Germany a long time ago, maybe in the mid 90s or so, and there was the statistic was the children in a household are likely to get asthma and eczema in direct proportion to the number of time that mum and dad wipe the surfaces with an antibacterial agent. There is a proportionality. The more you clean, the more likely you are for the kids, and this is done over thousands of households, more likely for kids to get asthma and eczema. It's like your grandmother said to you, I have no doubt. She said, you know, a peck of dirt is good for you. You've got to have a bit of dirt because apart from anything else, it's very probiotic. It keeps your gut microbiome tuned. It's really, really important. And, you know, when I was at college in the 80s, the microbiome was, oh yeah, it's just a load of bugs. But nowadays, we now realize that the gut is your second brain, and that the bugs within your gut are key to hormone production, to immune function. And there's a direct communication. For every one signal that comes from the brain via the vagus nerve to the gut, 9 go from the gut to the brain. So there is communication, but actually there's more information going from the gut to the brain than there is from the brain to the gut. So amazing. So, and we're learning this. And how do you keep your gut happy? Answer: species appropriate food. Don't feed your horse on steaks. Don't feed your cat and your dog like they were a cow. Yeah, with this starchy grain material.
It's interesting because the horse world is a little slower than the dog and cat world now. It's easier to do testing on dogs and cats. They don't cost as much money. You know, it's hard to run a clinical trial on a bunch of 1,000-pound animals. Yeah. And so now the horse people are feeding fish oil to their horses. And I'm like, that's not species appropriate, you guys.
That's totally wrong. Yeah. And also, you don't want to be feeding soya oil because they're cutting down rainforests in Brazil to grow soya, and so that's not a great idea. I think that the if you want omega-3s, then flax oil is the way to go.
Thank you. That's what I recommend too. I know there's a lot of press out there on different oils. What about this ahi flower? What is that?
Ahi flower? Now that's really interesting. That's the third mention in like a week of the ahi flower. I think it's just a very good source of omega-3. I think it might be for vegans. It might be one of those really unusual but not so expensive sources of omega-3, because obviously for vegans they struggle with iron and zinc and essential fatty acids, omega-3s and what have you, but also mainly B12. Where do you get your B12 from, Poppy?
Well, unfortunately, I do it synthetically. So,
Oh, the
so
admits.
I
Okay.
take a liquid B12 every day. It makes a big difference. And actually, I've had some blood run from Solgar. I take it from Solgar, and
That's good.
yeah, it's a good product. And fun fact, I did some blood work a while ago, and I was way over on my B12. So we know it works. So
okay, that's amazing. That's really good. I mean, yeah, it is. Big. I would like to give blood. Yeah, you know how you can go along, you can give blood to save people who are in traffic accidents and things like that. But I'm actually afraid of needles. I hate. I've been a vet 30 years. Yeah, and an acupuncturist. And I hate needles, especially if they're coming towards me, and I faint at the sight of blood. Yeah, if I see human blood, especially my own, I'm on the deck. Yeah, seriously, it's hilarious.
That is hilarious. I'm like,
Isn't it hilarious?
I don't have a spleen. I got kicked by a horse when I was 14, so I lost that a long time ago. And so I need all the blood I can get.
Oh boy.
Wow. I don't give blood. I don't know if people would want my blood, actually. So I don't
know, but I think it's good. They say it's very good for men, especially, to reduce your iron and get and give blood on a regular basis. There is some work to suggest it correlates with lower risk of cancers.
You know,
if you give blood.
This is like a total detour on the conversation. Yes, my whole family history, we do come from England, Scotland, and Ireland, and my sister, my mom, and I were all diagnosed with hemochromatosis. So So my sister goes in for bloodletting. Believe it or not, I went to a healing ministry. They prayed for me and it vanished. Like the next week I went and got blood work done and it was gone. But I was rusting. So literally, you guys, you rust from the inside out. I couldn't move my right hand. It was like a career ender. I couldn't hold the steering wheel. I couldn't hold a pen. I was couldn't zip my zipper on anything. And that was back in 2018, so not that long ago. Pre-COVID though, and vanished. I'm good.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I understand the iron factor, and it's I would turn very, very bronzy and my hair turned almost black when I was really pulling iron. And then I moved
iron. Yeah. Hemochromatosis, guys, is basically where you produce too much iron, or you don't get rid of iron. You don't turn the iron over. It just kind of sluggishly stays in your body, and your body doesn't like too much iron, and it's a real problem. And so people who have hemochromatosis, they have to give blood on a really regular basis. They're bled regularly.
Yeah, it seems very barbaric, but I didn't realize it was a cancer precursor.
For men especially, and the thinking is that back in the good old days when we were warring against each other in tribes in the Serengeti and goodness knows where, the men would all go, head to head and kill each other or wound and maim each other. And so you'd have a good bloodletting on a regular basis. And nowadays, when we're all very civilized and we'll shake each other's hands and say, how do you do? And what have you, there's no bloodletting. And so giving blood for men on a regular basis is, I'm reliably informed, it was a good thing to do.
So that makes me question about blood microbiome is if you're giving blood and people are receiving other people's blood, is that similar as like a fecal microbiome transplant? I've never thought of it, actually.
I've never thought of that. You've got bacteria everywhere. Yeah. When I was at college, the brain was a sterile organ. The placenta was a sterile organ. The inside of the orbit was a sterile organ. But nowadays, now that electron microscopes and things are so much better, they're finding that there are bacteria everywhere, including your brain. Yeah, bacteria everywhere, and so I've no doubt that there are some bacteria in the blood, and they're probably doing good in the blood. Obviously, if you get a lot of bad guys in the blood, that's called septicemia, and that's going to kill you pretty quick. But I think that you know, if you're lucky enough to get some blood, good blood, with a good biome, that's going to really set you up for a few months. Well, for a month or so, I'd have thought that. Yeah.
I'm pretty curious about that, actually.
Yeah,
Now,
no, I've never thought.
yeah, my brain's kind of reeling. Like, I believe that organ transplants, people have memory of the organ donors, right? Have
Oh,
you heard that?
wow.
Oh, you've never heard this?
I have, and I'll tell you what I've got just here is Fred Provenza's book. If you guys haven't come across this wonderful book, and he talks about the wisdom. It's kind of talking about the wisdom of the body and how animals are really tuned into this, and that it's quite easy because they have so many less distractions. You can see it if you're looking at sheep, for example, that you can measure their propensity to help themselves if they're low in cobalt or selenium or iron or whatever it might be. And he tells a story of a woman who receives the heart and lungs of an 18, so she's mid 40s or so. She has a heart and lung transplant, and all of a sudden she begins to crave, and she's never liked these things in the past, beer and what are they, chicken McNuggets.
Why would she
I kid
crave
you
that?
not. Why would she crave that? Because the 18-year-old man whose heart and lungs she got is now having an influence. Yeah. Now, if you go to you go to your cardiologist, you go to your pneumatologist, and say, what does the heart have to do with my food preferences? They'll say absolutely nothing, categorically, absolutely nothing. But here we go. Here's some evidence of it. And he says as well, I prepared this last a few days ago, but I just happen to have it here right next to me. And he talks about so this is Fred Provenza, Nourishment. By the way, the book is really long and slightly heavy, but the audio book is really amazing. But here we go. This is what he says. He's so this is people who've had change in their food relationship after transplant. The list is long and includes a steak eater who became a vegetarian, a milk drinker who began to hate milk, a man who always wanted to like wine but never enjoyed it until his transplant. One man who never liked coffee received a kidney from his sister, a big coffee drinker, and soon he too was a coffee drinker. A man who received a kidney from his wife said he craved her favorite foods.
Okay, stop the train, Dr. Nick. I actually have a friend that got a kidney transplant, and he knew it was Hispanic. And the reason why he knew it was Hispanic was he craved Mexican food. And they owned a barn in Nebraska, and he would suddenly take his lunches with the Hispanic crew every day. He'd run out there and have tortillas and beans and sit by the fire with their Hispanic farm workers. And they tracked it down, and it was a Hispanic person for sure. Yeah. But you also get the memories of people.
Yeah. So
this is fecal microbiome transfers. I always wonder if that is going to happen too. And I'm all about questioning, should you do gender specific fecal microbiome transfers? I don't want to put female bitches in my castrated male dog. I want to do male intact, non-castrated male dogs into my male dog. Yeah. So I think we're just getting it. And so also now you have to think blood transfusions. Do I get a man's blood transfusion, or do I get a female blood transfusion? And hopefully they're hormone balanced. I had a client that had retina replacement therapy, and she was a woman, but one man's retina in one eye, one man's retina in the other eye. She had gender confusion after that.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We could go down this rabbit hole. This is a passion of mine. I really think we have to be gender conscious, but also healthy donors.
Yeah, no, I think healthy donors, if we're coming back to dogs, I think having a healthy donor for fecal microbiome transplantation is really, really good. But and not just it hasn't got salmonella. Yeah, the donor hasn't got salmonella or parasites. It's got to be a whole lot bigger than that. Hopefully they've been raw fed for many, many years and what have you. What I will say is that in the 1920s at the Royal London Homeopathic Hospital, there was a guy called Edward Bach, or Batch, as he said, the Batch flower remedies.
Yes, yes. The bowel nosodes. Are we talking?
The bowel nosodes.
Bowel
Okay.
nosodes.
Yeah.
I found them so fascinating. Tell the audience
There
what
you
that
go.
is.
Okay, so what they did, Edward Batch was he trained as a homeopath, and then he thought, wow, there's so much more to this than just homeopathy. So he took it to the next level, and he looked at people with certain constitutions, and he took bowel stool samples from say a load of pulsatilla people, and he created what he called a bowel nosode. He then took people if they had a arsenicum or lycopodium or what have you, and so he was able to batch these things up, and so he's produced about 15, 16 bowel nosodes. And what you can do is you can match the symptoms from the people who donated those samples to give for the stool sample, which made the remedy, and then you use the remedy in a homeopathic form to treat the disease, which is just amazing. Have a look. I've got a book. Do you want a book reference? I love books, and I've got a great reference.
Give us a book reference. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation, you guys. I hope you're enjoying this. It's a little bit of a rabbit trail.
Hang on, I've got it. Bear with me, guys.
Because the rabbit trail on this is like, my dog loves to eat horse poop. He is obsessed with horse poop. And so I worry about him. He gets gassy when he eats horse poop. And my horses have been super gassy lately. So it crossed my mind is, okay, my horses are not processing their hay and grass, right? They're out on grass hours out of the day. So they have a really, really natural environment. So why would they be so gassy? So I'm talking about how my horses are gassy and my dog eats horse poop, and now he's gassy.
Okay.
And so the microbes that he's ingesting, whatever gut flora that's off in my horses, seems to be affecting the gut flora in my dog too.
Yeah.
He's a bulldog, but he's not gassy normally. I know people joke about
it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, that brings us, if the horses, I doubt they are having a lot of grain. And if they are having grain, I doubt it's a glyphosate type grain. But before we go down the glyphosate rabbit hole, I'm just going to say that's here you go.
Bowel nosodes in homeopathic practice. Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah. And so that was pre-fecal microbiome transfers. He was on it ahead of his time.
1920. So they were totally on it even then. Just while we're talking about references, this is one I did prepare earlier, because you've got a lot of horse people. And this is a really, really, if anybody's serious about homeopathy and horses, this is an absolute essential book. Okay. It's a big old tome. It's by my friend Tim Cousins. I'm not on commission, but Homeopathy for Horses, it's about as good as it gets. Yeah, because there aren't that many.
There's not
on homeopathy for horses. So I'd say that's a really, really great one to have just as a reference. The horse is doing this. What can I do? What can I use?
Would he be a guest speaker?
Sure. Talk to him.
Good. Let's do it.
Email me and I will introduce you, Poppy. No problem.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. So let's hop on to the sterility soil.
Oh, sterility. Yeah. Okay.
So what is causing, is it you just discussed how we wipe our stuff down, and our
Okay.
kids are getting more asthma and eczema.
Yeah.
And then we're using antibiotics and antibacterials,
Okay.
and then we're injecting our animals, and we're doing glyphosate, or is it just glyphosate? Is it Roundup? Is there more to it? Help us. Help us.
Yeah. Okay.
Big topic. Where do we
Yeah.
start?
No, it's massive. It's a massive topic. And it's really interesting that we started this topic 20 minutes ago, and then we've talked about 20 other things and then come back to it. Okay, so let's talk about sterility of soil to start with. Okay, yeah, we'll start with sterility of soil. Okay, why is the soil becoming sterilized? Well, there's many reasons, but I think some of the major reasons is that we're not looking after the soil. I usually use the word rape, but that it is, we are taking forcibly the goodness and the nutrients from the root. So if it doesn't offend you, I'm going to use that word because I think that's what it is, because that's what that word means. And I think we're doing this in many ways. We are over tillage. Yeah, we are damaging, cutting, slicing the soil on a regular basis in order to have short-term gains so that we can grow soya and wheat and corn. Okay, those are the main crops that they grow in the States, for example. Okay, and the way to really maximize your short-term growth and your production, your yield per acre, is to you plow, and then you will use pesticides to get rid of all the weeds so they don't get in the way. And then you will use fungicides, and you'll use insecticides to protect the crops. Okay, and all of these things will hit the soil, and therefore fungicides will kill any fungi which are in the soil, which are integral to the functioning of soil. With every square meter of soil, Poppy, there are 40 kilometers. That's about 32 miles of fungal elements. Okay, so what the regenerative farmers talk about is there is more life in your farm below your feet than there is in the fields of cattle and sheep and horses and corn and soya that you can see. There's more life under the soil than there is in front of you. Okay, and what we're doing is we are abusing, tearing, poisoning the soil year after year after year in order to give us really high, artificially high yields. And because the way we measure crop yield is in tons, and there's a wonderful Vandana Shiva has written a book on my list. It's called Terra Viva. Read it a few months ago, and her idea is we should not measure we measure fields by the number of tons, the yield in tons. We should measure it in the health of animals and people per acre. Okay, which I think is a fantastic way to do it, which means that we would use less, if not no, glyphosate, fungicides, moldicides, or any of these things to destroy the soil. Because what happens when you destroy soil is it will either blow away, or it will be washed away with the rain. Okay, and there's an amazing statistic by a wonderful author, Australian author, who, if you're interested in soil, he's called Matthew Evans, and he's written a book called Soil. Great title. And he says, okay, let's try and put a mental picture of how much soil, topsoil, is lost just in Australia. Now, Australia is pretty big, but it's only part of the entire planet. Okay, and we can use it as a microcosm of the whole planet. How much soil is lost every year in 1 year in Australia? Okay, so if you take all that soil, okay, that's that dust which gets blown or washed away, and you put it into one of those cattle, the trucks, you know, the trucks that they use for grain or for coal, or the rail trucks. Yeah.
Okay.
So you get all these trucks and you line them up end to end, okay, end to 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 end. Now, and they're all full of soil. That line of cattle trucks would stretch, and this is just from Australia, just in 1 year, that line of cattle trucks would stretch all the way around the world, 24,000 miles. And it would do that 15 times each year. Yeah. So, this cattle truck all the way around the world 15 times. That's just one continent. And it's just as bad in Europe, and it's just as bad in South America, just as bad in North America, just as bad in Canada. That's how much soil we are losing. And the thing that really grieves me is we don't need to, because there's such a thing as regenerative agriculture. If nobody's come across this phrase, I only came across it maybe 3 years ago. Regenerative agriculture, and it does what it says on the tin. The regenerative agriculture, the farmer of a regenerative farm has more soil after a year than he did a year ago, because he uses livestock, cattle and sheep and deer and what have you, chickens and rabbits and what have you, to grow soil. And the beauty of growing soil is that it fixes carbon, so it helps with the carbon dioxide problem, global warming, and it provides forage for those herbivores. So number one, it helps us with controlling the destruction of the planet and the atmosphere. Number two, it provides protein and fiber, wool and meat and leather and, you know, all these things. And that for me is really, really exciting, because I don't know of any other man-derived intervention that can feed us and help with the global warming crisis. And so I'm really excited about that, and that is my passion of the moment.
That's amazing. I have so many questions about this. Thank God there's hope.
Yeah,
and
there is.
And it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Now, I have my horses out in my pasture and they poop all over the place. And my, rain came and washed it to my neighbor's backyard.
Right.
And he was pretty upset with me. And I was like, really? Like, isn't that natural fertilizer? Like, why would you be so upset with that? It boggled me that everybody was more into their aesthetics instead of the natural fertilizer. Like, he should be thanking me, right?
He absolutely should. I mean, you can't eat aesthetics. I mean, it's great to have beautiful things around, don't get me wrong, but you can't eat aesthetics. And the thing about soil is that, in the Midwest, you guys used to have 8-10 feet of topsoil. Imagine, you used to have 8 or 10 feet. You're now down to 6 inches or less of topsoil.
I didn't realize that. And it's funny because I've worked in Nebraska quite a bit, and the GMO seeds, you can tell the plants because they are perfectly even and they look identical. It shocked me. I was like, oh my gosh, like the ears are on the same side. The height is exactly the same. They're just genetically made. You can tell they're fake.
These monocultures, they're really bad. They're just so unnatural, and nature doesn't know what to do with them. They're not great. They are terrible for the soil. However, up in Nebraska, you've got the wonderful, beautiful Gabe Brown. And if you guys haven't read anything about Gabe Brown, he's written a book called Dirt to Soil. okay? Because everybody thinks dirt and soil, same thing. No, 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 no. Dirt is the stuff that will blow or wash away. Soil is the stuff that just sits there and will grow plants and grass for your herbivores, and will fix carbon, and will provide habitats for the birds and the bees, and will provide a habitat for ecodiversity of bacteria and little worms within the soil, and will give our kids and our grandkids and beyond something to farm. Whereas the way we're going at the moment, there's just going to be nothing left in measured in decades. There's going to be very little viable soil to grow food, whether that's vegetable based food, or whether that is cattle and sheep and what have you. We're just running out of this resource, and that for me is really, really scary, because it's not difficult to regenerate soil. It's just that most people don't know how and don't know why they should.
That's shocking.
It is.
I know there's this whole belief system. There was this documentary called Cowspiracy.
Cowspiracy, yeah.
Yeah, and so all these vegans hopped on the bandwagon on Cowspiracy. I grew up on a 40,000 acre working cattle ranch. And so I saw the lies and the claims in that. I'm like, no, that's not true. And that's not true. I don't know how they got away with that. And people actually believe that. But my nephew, who went to a major university, came out of that university all about almond trees and destroy the cows and get rid of cows. And I was just like, no, cows are really needed. Like, look at the
cows. Yeah, cows are the only thing that's standing. Cows and sheep. Yeah. And other ruminant animals, and good farming, beyond organic farming. That's the only thing between us and running out of soil. And one thing is, once you run out of soil, you can't make it very quickly, and so that's going to be potentially a crisis point. And if you're managing soil well, then that helps with soil, with water, yeah, because water courses tend to be cleaner because there's no pollution and glyphosate and what have you. And if there's no glyphosate, then people tend to be healthier because glyphosate is an antibacterial. Therefore, it affects your microbiome. Therefore, it affects your health, which affects your immune system and your relationship with the environment and viruses. And so I think that, as far as I can see, agriculture will be the heart of culture in the city. Agriculture will put culture back into humanity, which is really, really exciting, because that's where we came from. 400 years ago, when we were just beginning to populate the States, all those people from Devon and Cornwall and Scotland and Ireland and places, they came from agriculture, and that's what established the States, isn't it? It's agriculture. And what happened is they had these just endless acres of super fertile soil, which they planted and fertilized and what have you, and as soon as the soil lost its fertility, they just moved west, because there was a whole lot of west that they could move to. And I'm not blaming you. That's what most people would have done. Most human beings would have done that. Okay, this doesn't work. Shall we try and regenerate this land, or should we just move across the creek and then start planting across the creek? That's what you do, because it's easier to do. And that's why, and it's happening all over the world, and that's why we're in the very difficult situation we're in, because we haven't looked after this super precious commodity, which is soil.
I didn't know it was like a South American problem or a Canadian problem. I didn't realize the global impact of this. I know in the United States, we created like the Dust Bowl.
Yeah, 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just ruined the soil and we moved along.
Yeah.
But we weren't using that much pesticides at the time, were we? Like,
No, but we were tillage. It was just over tillage. You were you were, and we were doing the same in the UK because we exported our way of farming over to the States. And so what happens, you plow the field and then you leave it without any cover. And when you leave it without any cover and it's a hot day, it will bake, and then the wind comes along and it will blow away. And so gradually you lose soil gradually. And the trick, and it's a lot easier in Europe because it's a very temperate climate. Yeah. So it's easy to keep that cover because the green cover crops hold the soil, stops it blowing away, stops it washing away. But if you've got 100,000 acres and you've just plowed it, and then it's really hot for a fortnight, and then it's really windy for a fortnight, say goodbye to the top inch or two. And you do that for 150 years. John Deere came along, what, 1890 or so?
No, it's a good question.
Yeah, that's when he came along. And he's fed a lot of people, but he's destroyed. And he's not the only tractor manufacturer, obviously. I'm not pointing the finger at him specifically, but if you don't look after things, they will die. That is a fundamental, and this is what's happening with our soils. They are dying, they are blowing away, washing away. And the first thing is you need to realize that. And for me, it's a question of supporting those farmers who are awake to this. Support those farmers who are growing soil as well as food and fiber for you and your family. And for me, the farmers to look at are people like Joel Salatin, he's in Virginia, and then we've got Gabe Brown, he's up in Nebraska, and they are thought leaders in this, and they're going around the world all the time, going around the States all the time, preaching this idea of growing soil, of looking after this such a precious resource, which will then feed into the health of us and our animals, which is, that's what it's all about. If you haven't got health, you've got nothing. Poppy, that you were really sick, even back in 2018. So if you haven't got health, you haven't got anything. And so looking after our soil is so important.
It's I don't think people look at their dirt or their soil. Thank you for clarifying the difference between dirt and soil. I actually didn't know that.
That was Gabe. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that the little things that we take for granted will create a health impact, an economy impact, maybe atmospherically, maybe the ozone will be affected, correct? Or weather will be affected. Everything. Yeah, totally. So if we can, somehow, because big ag doesn't like it, big pharmaceutical companies don't like it, but if we can move towards smaller local farms where that your farmer, where you get your food from, and because you buy from them, they are obliged to maintain really good standards. You don't travel far to get your food for your family, thereby saving miles. You can travel wherever you like, but you get your food locally. In the States, Michael Pollan, the author, claims that most food that you buy in the supermarket has at least 1,500 kilometers of food miles on it. Just every single piece of food, at least 1,500 kilometers of food miles on it. So interesting. I never really thought of that. So why is Bill Gates buying all the farmland? Should we even say this?
No, I think I'm really sad with what Bill Gates is doing in many areas, with what he's been doing the last 3 years for a start, without putting too fine a point on it. But why is he buying up land well, as Mark Twain said, they're not making it anymore. So it is a resource that, if he looks after it, can be used in perpetuity. And I think that's it, because most things that you invest in are fairly transient, but things like gold, things like land, they will last. If you look, gold will last as long as it doesn't get stolen, and land will last if you look after it. But I'm just trying to think of why he might be buying land. I'm sure there are people watching this going, it's because of this, it's because of this. I don't really know.
Apparently he owns the majority of farmland in the United States. I've heard some factors about that. I don't know if it's true.
He might be the biggest landowner. Yeah. And he has got gazillions, and therefore can buy this. I'm just trying to think just off the cuff as to why he might be buying all that land. And the reason, the obvious thing is that, okay, he's going to set up farms and he's going to charge everybody loads and loads of money for the Bill Gates beefsteak. Okay, that might be it. But most of the futurists are talking about, we will live just in enclosed settlements, that the environment will be wilded, and we will be eating impossible food, impossible burgers made in bacterial vats. This is George Monbiot. His book is called Regenesis, and he's saying that he sees the future as solar powered bacterial vats producing protein and nutrients, which is then turned into soup, burgers, whatever it might be. And he thinks that is the future for humanity. But that doesn't chime with Bill Gates buying loads of land. So I'm not sure is the real. Why do you think he's buying loads of land, Poppy? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's population control, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but how do you control population by buying land, apart from denying people living on it?
I think it's a game of chess and not checkers. I think the intelligent people can play this game so much further in advance than the average human can see. And that they have run data and statistics. So I believe, do we say this on Facebook?
Oh, well, listen, it's your Facebook.
Like, so. Will I get flagged? Will I get banned?
Just say something that means it, so you don't get flagged.
So I believe computer viruses have been studied really well, and I think he wanted to see it play out in the human realm.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah,
I get you.
And to see if it was a similar way of how it performed in an AI situation.
I'm totally hearing what you're saying, and it's really interesting that a computer geek suddenly becomes a vaccine geek. And what's that about? And he has said that, and he's on his TED Talks, he's talked about population control. Yeah, he is completely upfront about that.
Yeah.
And population control means losing significant quantities of people, doesn't it? That's control means reduction in world population. Is that correct? Am I being unfair?
So there's this whole theory that we have too many people on the planet, that the planet can't sustain it. Yeah. But the planet can't sustain it because we are living this artificial convenience of lifestyle. And so here's this, I've driven through Oklahoma, I've driven through Virginia. There's a ton of land out there that's not tapped. And I think the planet can sustain us.
I agree.
I don't think we need to move to Mars.
I agree. I totally agree. I think we should forget Mars for now. Try it again in 100 years' time, maybe. Let's sort out this planet before we start try for another. My thought on that is that the level of food waste, Poppy, you any idea how much food is wasted on the planet?
I've heard
every day, every year,
because I followed this guy named now I'm gonna totally forget his name, Max Lamana, and he is a food waste chef. So he prepares food all the way down to the stems and the flowers and everything that people throw out. And he has this whole food waste conscience.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, so tell me the numbers.
That's because 40% of food grown in farms all around the world is wasted.
Wow.
In so-called developed countries like the States, like Europe, it is wasted in the home. Yeah, it's like things go off in the fridge, or mummy, I don't want to eat that. Okay, that's where your 40% comes. Okay. Wow. Whereas in so-called developing countries, I don't like that terminology, but it just means that we're on the same page. In so-called developing countries, the waste is from farm to market. Yeah, because the infrastructure is not so good. Yeah, because the refrigeration is not so good and the roads are not so good and what have you. And so there is spoilage. 40% overall. Some people say 50, but most people are saying 40%. So if you think we've got 8 million people on the planet at the moment and we're wasting 40% of the food, I'm no mathematician, but if we wasted 10% of food rather than 40% of food, that would get us from 8 million to 10 million. And everybody's absolutely terrified of 10 million people, 10 billion, sorry, with a B, from currently 8 billion, and it's going to be 10 billion. And there's a lot of people who are saying that there's a guy who wrote a book called, I'm just trying to remember it. Can't remember it. Anyway, he says that there's going to be some kind of balancing out effect when we get to about 10 billion people. But I think that it is possible right now to feed everybody on the planet if we worked on food waste. Who's working on food waste? Very, very few people. Why is that? Because they don't see any money in it. I don't know. But it's criminal. And so some people say, well, what about all the starving children in Africa and India and places like that? And I'd say, yeah, there are people. That's not a lack of food. That's a lack of will to get the food that there is to those people. We didn't have any problem vaccinating them over the last 3 years, did we? Yeah. Everybody on the planet was at least offered a vaccine, okay, when they could have been offered a piece of bread or something more nutritious than that. Okay, so for me, where there's a will, there's a way. When we want to get something, a commodity, out to every person on the planet, we can do that. We've just demonstrated that in the last 3 years. Yeah, first dose, second dose, that's what happened. So I think that food distribution, creating food is totally possible. A lot of people will say, well, it's all very well with regenerative agriculture, but can you feed the world with regenerative agriculture? And absolutely. A lot of studies have been done that you can do this, that the yield from a regenerative farm can be as big as a conventional cropped, a conventional crop.
That's good to know, because I know we're programmed to buy the prettiest cauliflower. Like, I have this beautiful cauliflower in my house. Like, I look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful this cauliflower is. Yeah. Will somebody's small regenerative farm be producing like this moldy cauliflower? Or will it still have that amazing scent, like too perfect of a look?
Yeah, but the thing is, Poppy, it's the food that comes from those farms which are using a lot of pesticide, a lot of fertilizer, they may be producing good-looking food, but in order to do that, they waste a lot. Yeah, everything that doesn't look perfect gets trashed.
Right.
But also the nutrient density in those perfect looking plants are going to be substantially lower than the slightly smaller cauliflower from Mr. Regenerative down the road, the regenerative farmer down the road. Okay, so you've actually got more nutrition in the smaller cauliflower, and it's going to taste a whole lot better as well.
So it's like men, you're saying. Like,
in what way?
Those good-looking men could be pretty low nutritionally, like substance.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
Yeah. I have a joke. I have a pickup truck that's really pretty, but it doesn't haul anything. So I call it my bad boyfriend truck.
Okay.
Because it's just fun to look at, but that's about it.
You can't have everything. You can't have everything, Poppy.
Oh, well, I'll try.
Yeah.
So what can we do? What is our part in this? Like, I have
Our
this
part in this
manure pile.
is
I have
voting with voting with your grocery dollar. Is spending your grocery dollar with go onto your search engine of choice. I'm using DuckDuckGo these days because I don't want to use the one beginning with G. And I would go onto that and search for the regenerative farms, plural, who are nearby to you. Talk to them. Go and talk to them. Go and shake their hand and say, "Hi, I'm so glad I found you," and vote with your dollar. That, I think, is practical. It's easy. It's practical. And even if you haven't got many dollars, those that you have, you can make a difference with how you spend those dollars. And the payback to you is improved health, more delicious food, and you are helping the local community rather than helping some non-regenerative farmer, in a Brazilian rainforest, or wherever it might be.
So for the membership, we're all animal owners. I mean, that's who we are, right? We're passionate, productive animal owners that want to do best. I have this massive manure pile in the back, but I've used some dewormers. I haven't used a lot of antibiotics on my horses. I don't vaccinate them. I use nosodes. So that manure should be fairly clean. But like I said, my horses, for some reason, are kind of on the gassy side. And it's got to be the hay because they're out on natural grass.
Okay.
And
where'd you get your hay?
I get my hay at a local hay broker type situation.
Okay.
Most all hay in California is sprayed. There's no organic hay.
Okay.
The cycle is always disrupted somewhere, it seems like.
Yeah. I think it's worth having some happy hours looking for somebody who's got a regenerative farm somewhere near you. I mean, it's California. You're going to get the extremes. You're going to get the extreme sprayers, and you're going to get the extreme regeneratives. I would be doing some research in that direction to find the regenerative community. I bet if you went onto Facebook and you put regenerative agriculture California, there would be 20 forums for people who are following that. Even in UK, which is tiny little island, there must be 20 or 30 forums of people who are looking at pasture raised cattle and sheep, who are promoting regenerative lifestyle, regenerative agriculture. At the very least, have a look. I would say for you and for your lovely followers, have a look at Joel Salatin. Have a look at his TED talk. Joel Joel Salatin, Salatin, Joel Salatin in Virginia. He did a TED talk, and that's a really, really great place to start. And then you can do some Googling on some of the links that he suggests. But regenerative agriculture. If any of your guys are big readers, this is a wonderful book to have a look at. Call of the Reed Warbler by Charles Massey. It's a big book, and it's set mainly in Australia. But you know what? If you know what the climate is like in Australia, it's really hot and it's really windy. And then if it's not windy and really hot, then they have floods. These guys are leading the world in regenerative agriculture, and because they have to, because their soil, they're just saying goodbye to all their soil. So they are leading the way. And if they can do it in Australia, you can do it in California. Yeah, because it's not as harsh as it is in many parts of Australia. Yeah. And we can do it in Europe. Yeah, there's no excuse. In Europe, you know, it rains for a third of the year, you know.
Oh my God,
So
I can't imagine that.
yeah. So
The mold content alone, which is probably a good thing for the soil, but
it's
yeah.
good for the soil. Yeah. Mold and fungi and there's a wonderful book by a guy called Merlin Sheldrake. It's called Entangled Lives, and it's all about fungi and mycelium that we find in our soils and in trees and forests and in human beings. Really fascinating book to have a look at.
It's pretty mind-boggling, the communication aspect of the mycelium.
Merlin Sheldrake is your guy. Have a read. It'll blur. I did it on audiobook, and the guy has got the most wonderful mellifluous voice. It's like the most amazing chocolate you've ever eaten in your life. That's his voice. Okay, amazing. So it's like really poetic, gentle, but he's bright, really bright boy at the same time. So treat yourself to that, maybe for Easter. Entangled Lives by Merlin Sheldrake. A wonderful book, really great book. Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
If you guys have any questions, either put it in the chat on Facebook, or whoever is hanging out with us on the Zoom. If you want to pipe in and ask anything, you guys ask away. I know it's getting late in the UK, and you probably want to go
I'm going to have to shoot soon. So if anybody wants to come get in touch with me, it's easy. You can get in touch with Poppy and she'll put you through to me, or my email. No, the easiest way is my website. It's very easy. holisticvet.co.uk. Holistic vet. Holistic vet.
All one word.
Holistic vet, one word. .co.uk, and you'll get straight onto the site. There's free information there. There's a couple of videos. There's one of my videos is called Raw Feeding, The Basics, and it's 10 short lessons that will tell you everything you need to know about the basics of raw feeding. And another one called Bones and How to Feed Them, and does what it says on the tin. And you'll find those on the website.
Any other? Okay, so Lee's asking, another farm in the US is
White Oak. Yeah. You're absolutely right. That what's the guy? He is up there with Gabe and Joel. Can you remember what his name, the guy who runs it? I was hearing about him about 2 weeks ago, and I can remember where I was. Bill Harris. Or Will Harris. It's Will Harris, isn't it? Yeah, Will Harris. So yeah, he's great. He's really leading the way. And he is one of the guys at White Oak Pastures, his farm called White Oak Pastures, he's actually showing that his yield is as good as it was before he went into regenerative agriculture. So Lee, you're a star. Thank you very much indeed.
Lee, thank you for that ad.
Yeah.
Way to go, Lee.
Yeah, really good.
And the fact that we believe this lie that we have to go commercial for production.
You don't need to. That's what the big fertilizer guys want you to think, and that's what the government might want you to think, because they want lots of cheap food. But this is cheap food which is going to run out. If not this generation, then the next generation. Okay, so how cheap is cheap food that runs out? That's a con.
It's interesting because Nostradamus actually predicted like a famine in our general era.
Yeah.
And you think, how could there be a famine? We're covered with food. There's food everywhere. But this is legit. This could be
Logistics.
a real thing.
Yeah, no, totally. Logistics is important, and it's also a will to do it. Lee says, also, my husband has looked into organic hays in California, and we haven't found any yet. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Davis, we have a couple organic growers in Davis, California, but
okay.
actually you have to go out of state to Nevada, or it may not be organic. It still might be GMO, but in California, alfalfa hay is Roundup Ready soaked seeds with Roundup sprayed on it.
Wow. Okay, that's not good.
It's
okay. I would have a little chat. Have a look at Nicole Hahn Nyman. She's done a wonderful book, Lee, called Defending Beef. And if anybody knows of glyphosate, for example, free hay in California, she will probably know. Who else?
What's her last name?
Nyman, Nyman, Hahn, Hahn, which is German, I think. Hahn Nyman. I would talk to Gabe Brown, talk to his people. Yeah, and just say, Gabe, you're in Nebraska, we're in California. Who do we talk to? Okay. Gabe as in Gabriel, Gabe Brown. He's a dude. Who else would I talk to? I'm just looking. I've got my list of great people here. Let me have a look. Let me look. No, I would be really surprised. Oh, you've lost. There we go.
Get your focus back.
Exactly good.
Move around.
I've moved around too much.
It when you leaned into it,
I know it confuses. There you go. It found me. Okay. Yeah, that's as good as I can do. But that's what the internet is for. It's putting people in touch with other people. I don't really like Facebook, but if it was me, I'd be going onto Facebook and I'd be putting in regenerative agriculture California, or Regen Ag California, or pasture raised meat California. Now, Poppy, you're not interested in pasture raised meat, but you are interested in the pasture. So
also the fact that I believe cattle should roam the ground.
I agree totally.
Because of the whole natural cyclical aspect of life. Yeah,
I totally agree. And Lee is saying, yeah, they're using loads of preservatives. And you just don't, you grow the stuff, you cut it, you dry it, you bale it, boom, end of. That's what it comes down to. And if you've got really, really healthy soil, because you're looking after your soil, because you're a regenerative agriculture farm, then you've got great hay, really nutritious hay. There's a movie called The Biggest Little Farm that you can look at. It's on Netflix. The Biggest Little Farm. And that's some really, really good stuff there. I think what you have to do is kind of leapfrog from maybe Gabe Brown to somebody a bit closer to somebody a bit closer to, but you know what? The internet allows us all to communicate. I mean, I can talk to you as more easily than I can talk to my neighbor who's just next door,
It's so crazy.
So it's great. So I think these people are out there. I will have a look. And if I come across anybody, that would be ironic. Some guy near Bath in England tells you about your neighbor who's growing really great non-chemical hay. That I would have great delight in bucking the system and telling you about that, about Farmer John down the road or Jane, down the road who's growing some great hay. I'll do that for you, Lee. I'll share that with you too. That would be
Lee, you're
great.
absolutely right. Is when I was young, our horses lived well into their 30s, and I actually had a gelding that competed as a 30-year-old and was winning. And now we see metabolic issues left and right, autoimmune issues. We're seeing way more cancer in horses. Horses never got cancer.
Yeah.
Lee, thank you so much.
Yeah, greatly. Thanks for your thoughts. Okay, great. Listen, I'm gonna have to put my kids to bed, guys.
Okay, thank you for your time. I
No
know
worries. It's 7:15, so I've got to go. I'm not wimping out, I promise.
and we appreciate your input and your absolute genius. Thank you so much.
Bless you, Poppy. Take care to you and to everybody. All the very, very best. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And I look forward to watching your videos. Thank you
you
for offering them.
Yeah, take care. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.